Driver's license testers. What's the worst thing a kid has done without batting an eye while taking the driving test? My dad was friends with a guy who worked for the registry giving the road test. His best story was of a kid who took his test while it was raining. He started driving without the windshield wipers on. The guy figured he was nervous, so tried to give him a break, saying, "It's raining pretty hard, huh?" The kid was white-knuckled on the steering wheel and just said, "Yeah." Again, trying to give the kid a break, he said, "Don't you think you should do something about that?" The kid said, "Yeah." Quote, apparently he didn't know where the wiper controls were, so he rolled down the driver's side window and stuck his head out. At that point he stopped the test and failed him. When I parallel parked, I hit the pole behind me, and the tester said, "It's fine. This should be an automatic fail, but I think that's a bit too harsh." Then I hit the pole in front of me head on. Did not pass. Wasn't a kid, my 80-year-old great aunt. The tester kept telling her to speed up. After a few times she said she can't see the speedometer, so she doesn't know fast she is going. He made her pull over and she did not receive a renewal, thank God. Last year I was making a left turn at a light, and a car swerved into my lane and hit me. Turns out it was someone taking the driver's test. I'm not exactly sure how driver's test car insurance works, but the instructor told me we had to wait for the police and take details of everything. I am guessing the driver did not pass. The kids make minor mistakes, and yes, some do make scary mistakes. However, it's the adults that scare me most. Especially the seniors who are up for re-exam. Probably the worst test I've ever been on was this man in his 90s. I instructed him to turn onto a street when it is safe to do so, and he turned, narrowly missing a pedestrian. Not only that, but he was driving on the wrong side of the road. He came head-to-head with another car who pulled over to let him go. He was laughing about it, because he was under the impression that it was a one-way road. When I got back to the office with him, I cut the test short and got him back in the quickest and safest way possible. He was astounded when I told him it was not a one-way street. Me, did you see any one-way signs? Him, no, but I assumed you were going to take me on one. Ha. My best friend's son just failed because he went the wrong way down a busy 4-lane road. Luckily, they made it safely into a parking lot and the testing administrator drove them back. My dad did testing for a few years and he once had a girl stop on railroad tracks. There was a train coming, slowly, but still it takes them a long time to stop, and it blasted the horn right into the car passenger side, with the window open. This just made her freeze up even more. He had to reach his foot over to her side to hit the accelerator. Took a test with a girl who drove on the wrong side of the road and took a left turn into oncoming traffic all in the same drive. It was through my school and she was banned from taking it through the school because of that. Answered his phone. My grandfather used to be a tester. He had one girl forget which way to turn the steering wheel, and they ended up in a ditch. One of my classmates in HS failed his driver's test 6 times. During one test, he hit a pedestrian. Opposite kind of story here. When I was taking driver's ed, I was in a car that had the brake on the passenger side for the instructor to use just in case. Going 35 down fairly busy street, my car all of a sudden comes to a complete stop. In horror, I look over at my instructor who is sound asleep with his foot on the brake. I just sat there dumbfounded. After a couple people honked real quick, he shook himself awake, mumbled a quick accelerate, and sat up adjusting his glasses. So that was fun. My driver's ed teacher said that one kid reclined his seat all the way back, put one foot on the gas and the other on the brake, and grabbed the top of the wheel with one hand and said, "Let's go." I'm not a tester, but I asked my tester during my full license test what was the worst thing someone had done. Apparently there was an older gentleman who drove through 3 stop signs before the tester told him to pull over. The gentleman explained that he didn't want the license, but his family was pressuring him, so ran the signs on purpose to fail, made sure no cars were coming first. My best friend was coming to a 4-way stop sign in our small rural town. The tester said to go straight. So she did, without stopping at the sign. Just drove right through without batting an eye. He basically told her, "Well, you failed, if you want to just drive back." I went forward instead of in reverse when the tester was standing in front of me on the curb. I failed. While I was waiting for my turn to do my CDL test, I watched a guy in a semi back into a light pole, and instead of seeing what he gently backed into, gassed it and knocked it over. Needless to say, I didn't get to take my test for an hour or so while they cleaned it up. In my local area, a guy in his mid-20s failed the test for some reason. At this point in time, the results of the test were shared in the car. After being told he failed, he proceeded to get out of the car and grab an axe out of the trunk. I don't know any more details beyond that, but apparently it is why the results are shared inside the licensing building rather than in the car. This reminded me of a moment I had during my final test. The tester had an arm injury and was wearing a brace on his right arm. I took a left turn way too hard and caused him to accidentally hit his arm against the door. I was just like, oh fuck, I'm so sorry. Surprisingly, he passed me that day. Maybe he didn't want me to come back, LMAO. When I went to take mine, the tester waited till I was at an intersection and then yelled turn left. She scared me, so I did and failed, lol. When I went back to try again, she was just ripping into this girl and her mom in the parking lot. I was like, at least I'll get a different tester course, she's clearly busy, lol. As someone who worked in a DMV for many years issuing driver's licenses, even though I wasn't a license examiner, I think I'm the closest thing to your target respondent so far. The craziest thing I ever witnessed with my own eyes was a dude who somehow managed to lose control at less than 15 miles per hour, jumped the curb, and smashed into the guardrail. Needless to say, he was not issued a license. The best story I ever heard from a coworker happened immediately after she came inside swearing a blue streak because, during a part of the test where the examiner stands on the curb in order to observe maneuvers, her customer drove up over the curb and straight into her knee. Not a tester, but I heard about a girl in driver's ed who was driving on the interstate with the teacher and 3 other students. The teacher commented that they missed the exit, but they would just get off on the next one. I'm not sure what the girl's thought process was, but this girl pulled into the grass and tried to go against the traffic to go back to their missed exit. The teacher had to use her brake on the passenger side while the 3 other students screamed bloody murder. While taking our CDL test, I was sitting in the sleeper area, and the guy actually taking the test ground gears when shifting. He immediately let go of the steering wheel, causing the proctor to have to grab the steering wheel and drive for the 5 or so seconds it took for him to recompose himself. In high school, my friend who was 18 at the time went to take his driving test. He drove himself there and failed the first time by doing a rolling stop at a stop sign. So he drove himself home. He tried a second time, did another rolling stop, failed again, and drove home. He got it the 3rd time, though. My old driving instructor told me about a kid that pulled into the drive-thru at McDonald's, ordered some food, then realized he left his wallet in his other car, was using the instructor's car. He wanted the instructor to pay for his food and said he'd offer half of his fries in return. The wallet also contained his license, so the instructor failed him on the spot and told him to get out the car. When I was sitting my test, I asked the tester how many tests he did in a normal day. His answer was 10. Not all that surprising, until he followed it up with 10, and 8 will fail before making it out of the car park. I asked him to elaborate, and apparently the vast majority of test sitters will fail for administrative reasons, like arriving late to the test, not bringing their existing learner's licenses, or having a vehicle that wasn't road legal. The latter was more common than it sounds, when all lights, turn signals, horn etc. are tested in the car park before the test itself begins. Fail any of the above and you've wasted your $75 and never even got into gear. If you like it and want to see more, please like the video and subscribe.